One of the things that's really been bothering me, and I'm a big Knicks fan. I like to wear my fandom on my sleeve. I try not to let my bias get the best of me, and it's only natural as a fan. But this Knicks team has been brutal to watch. And one of the things that I noticed last year that really struck me, and I am a big Tom Tibbs fan to an extent because I like how he gets the players involved. I like how he gets them to play both ends of the court. And I thought defensively, when he coached the Minnesota Timberwolves, he didn't have the necessary pieces to implement the kind of defense that he normally would on the NBA hardwood. I thought maybe taking those few years off, the 2, 3 years off, and then coming to New York, maybe he would be able to adjust his defensive system, which he has, and also adjust his offensive system. Because if you take a look back to the Timberwolves, when they had Cat and all these other guys that can score, they had scorers. Jimmy Butler was there. Cat was there. They had scorers. So the offense was never an issue when you have that many offensive fire pieces. Now you take a look at the New York Knicks, and this dates back to last year, where Julius Randle was playing point forward. And I like that position for him. I am an advocate of that position for him. I love myself a big man that can pass the ball, work the paint, and step out and shoot. That is the equivalent of having a five-tool Major League Baseball player. That's what you have in Julius Randle. Now, the issue is he wasn't surrounded by scorers. So what was the goal for the New York Knicks? What would you think it was? They had to add scorers. So they go on in obviously another year with R.J. Barrett getting better, another year with Emmanuel quickly getting better, Obi Toppin. They bring back Derrick Rose. They bring back Alec Burks. And then they go ahead and add some nice pieces. Evan Fournier, who is a walking bucket. They add Kemba Walker. This team looked like they added some good pieces. And obviously, you take a look, 1 + 1 = 2. So taking away Alfred Payton and adding a guy like Kemba Walker, you think 1 + 1 would equal 3, and you'd get more for your money. That has not been the case. Kemba Walker's been so abysmal on the defensive side of the ball that his offensive output can't nearly overcome how poorly he is on the defensive side of the ball. Now, on the right piece, on the right team, you can hide his defensive woes, and he can be a very good spark off the bench. He's still got game. He could still drop buckets. But defensively, he can't be a starting caliber point guard. Now, I'm not going to hate on the Knicks for that, because they took a flyer, a low risk, high reward type of move to bring in Kemba Walker. And I would give them props to notify themselves real quickly, assure themselves real quickly, this hasn't worked. It hasn't worked out well. We need to move on. So they benched Kemba Walker. That way he can't get injured. He can now officially be traded because he's past a certain part in his contract as being a new free agent coming to New York. He is now past that mark where he can be traded. So you don't play Kemba, but you can trade Kemba. So maybe they're working on something behind the scenes. But this dates back to last year where there was no ball movement outside of Julius Randle. And when Julius Randle was getting clogged up in the middle, like go back to the Atlanta Hawks playoff series where he was consistently getting double and triple teamed and nobody else was able to step up. So you thought the fact that trading out Reggie Bullock for Evan Fournier and trading out Alfred Payton for Kemba Walker would be an immediate upgrade. And you take a look at this team last year. They were the fourth seed. They surprised a lot of people, played great, gritty defense, made it into the playoffs for the first time in forever. The New York Knicks are back on the map. Check outside Madison Square Garden. Knicks fans going crazy. We've all seen the videos. Did that change our perception of reality? Did last year change our perception of reality? And I believe it did. I am a firm believer that our perception of reality was changed last year the moment the Knicks traded for Derrick Rose after hovering around 500. Derrick Rose added a spark that really led this team to a pretty darn good stretch in the second half of last year. In fact, such a good run that they were able to launch themselves into the fourth seed until they met a team that defensively and offensively, they were just better. They just wanted it more. But it goes back to ball movement. Tibbs, his offensive system, his offensive game plans. Is it going through Kemba? Is it going through Alex? Is it going through Alec Burks? Is it going through Julius Randle? Are we going to get the point forward going again? Are we going through the point guard? You got new pieces, revolving pieces. They all need to get continuity. They all need to gel with one another. They all need to find their roles. And you saw in the beginning of the season when Kemba was playing, their talent was good enough to overcome their lack of ability to have that cohesiveness that early in the season. You could see they were straining to find their own roles. But I take a look at that game against the Philadelphia 76ers early in the season where there was consistent ball moving. Or even against the Boston Celtics early in the season where they were moving the ball, they were knocking down threes. Evan Fournier looked like he was going to be one of the most improved players in the league. And then Kemba Walker gets benched. They have a losing season. Now they're 2-7 or 3-7 in their last 10. And I think it all dates back to the perception of reality being changed because of what we saw last year and expecting to expand on it. But let's be honest. Julius Randle, outside of having some nice seasons in New Orleans, he is who he is. He's a good player. He is a fringe all-star player. And I thought last year, I bought into him being an all-star. I wasn't ready to buy into him being a superstar, but I said in the fact that he's in New York has elevated him to that superstar status, even though his play wasn't warranted. This year, I still think he is who he is. He's a fringe all-star player, a very good piece, but not a number one. There is no number one on this team. RJ Barrett hasn't risen to the occasion, being the number 3 pick in the draft. And I said before that draft, I really hope Ja Morant falls to the Knicks. Because not only do I love Ja Morant and the style of play that he has and the hustle and the underdog story of coming from Murray State. I love those players that come from unnoticed colleges like Murray State, Davidson, you name it. Weber State, Damian Lillard, Steph Curry, Ja Morant. These guys worked their tails off to be where they are. And I'm a firm believer in a guy that wants to hustle, wants to win, wants to do everything. And it's not necessarily that RJ Barrett can't be that guy. It's just if you've been a Knicks fan for as long as I have, you've had the ups and downs, the Raymond Feltons, the Chauncey Billups, the Jason Kidds, the Pablo Prigionis. I could list a bajillion point guards over the last 20 years for the New York Knicks. None of them have been all-stars. So to get a guy like the caliber of Ja Morant would have been tremendous for this Knicks team. He could have led the team in passing and scoring, leader on and off the court. But unfortunately, that's how things played out. We do have RJ Barrett. I am a Maple Mamba fan. I do like his hustle on the defensive side of the ball. I think he's done a great job improving. He was never the greatest shooter in college, and he's become a lot better of a shooter in the NBA. I don't think he has that killer mentality that you need out of a certified baller, but he's a very good piece as well. And I'm getting a little off topic here, but my point being is that the perception of reality has changed because of what we saw last year. And I don't want to say it's an outlier, but I want to say that it bucked the trend. A young team with a new head coach needs to go through the learning curves, the bumps, the bruises, the losing in multiple fashions. The ugly losses, the tight losses, the road losses, the home losses. They need to go through it all and be through it all to grow, to learn, and to play better. You take a look at this Knicks team. Mitchell Robinson, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, Obi Toppin, Quentin Grimes. If you want to throw Kevin Knox in there, Kevin Knox. Not to mention Jericho Sims, who's playing in the G League right now. They have some nice, young, talented pieces that are not quite ready. Not quite ready. I know we've all fell in love with IQ last year. Emmanuel Quickley could catch fire in an instant. He did some really nice things in the preseason. Even played a little bit of point guard. And it was nice to see him step up his game to that kind of caliber. But these guys are not quite ready. And the only way to get ready is that they need to play more. And Tibbs, was forced his hand to play Quentin Grimes and Emmanuel Quickley and he was forced to play these young guys. You take a look across the board and you take a look at Chicago and Minnesota. They have the lowest ranks. When he coached, they're the lowest ranks of young players. You take a look at the year previous to Tom Tibbs coaching and then the year Tom Tibbs coached. Their age, their average age, tremendously jumped. There's a reason Taj Gibson is in this game. There's a reason Taj Gibson's playing. There's a reason he brought over Derrick Rose. There's a reason they went ahead and grabbed Evan Fournier and Kemba Walker. But you need to go through the bumps and bruises, the rise and grinds of these young, talented players. Now, I'm not going to say Quentin Grimes, Emmanuel Quickley, or Obi Toppin are ever going to be NBA stars like on the verge of Chris Bosh, Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade. But we need to let these young guys develop. And it's going to come at the cost of this potentially not being a playoff season. And I know we took a look into the season before it started and said, all right, so we got the 4th seed. We've added some talent. This should be a top 4 team. And all along I said, this is a top 10 team. I don't know if they're a top 4 team, but they're a top 10 team. And right now they're even proving me wrong on that. But at the end of the day, I think the perception of reality changed with the fact of what we saw last year. And that we do need to remember this is a young team still molding the young minds, the young talent, and they need to continue to learn and grow. And what we saw last year was an outlier. I didn't want to say it, but it is an outlier. They skipped a step. And now this year, they're going back to that step. And I know it's heartbreaking as a Knicks fan that's endured such cruelty over the last 20 years. Ever since James Dolan took over, We lost Jeff Van Gundy. We brought in, all these guys to terrible contracts. The Eddie Currys of the world. Andre Bargnati. Again, I can list a bajillion of them over the last 20 years. But staying prisoner to the moment of last year has led to the downfall of what Knicks are feeling right now. And don't point to the big win that they got last night. They beat the Rockets. And guess what? Everybody beats the Rockets. So I'm sitting here right now telling you, at 13-16, on the outside looking in of playoffs, and I know it's early, it's a quarter way through the season, don't really get on your grind until Christmas Day and after. I'm telling you right now, this is a top 10 team barely, in that we need a superstar to elevate this team. On top of the fact that we need our young guys to continue to be molded and grow in the right way and to play the right way on both sides of the ball. And it's got to be the right superstar. Can't forget that. I'm not going to give up young assets for Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal. You need to find the right pieces, the right trade. If I'm going to get Damian Lillard, it's got to be the right trade, because this team isn't a championship caliber team. And adding Damian Lillard and subtracting Mitchell Robinson and RJ Barrett is not going to make it a championship team. Now, if you can get away with trading a couple of your draft picks and maybe give up one of those two players along with some of the younger players, maybe you give up Obi Toppin and Mitchell Robinson, I understand that move, but you can't give up too much for these superstars, because this Knicks team isn't really that close, but they can be with the right trade, the right piece. But at the end of the day, this season needs to be about molding the young talent for the future.